Every morning at exactly 6:10 a.m., a single dad stopped his rusty bike, set aside his own struggles, and helped a frail old man cross the street. No cameras, no applause, just kindness. But one morning, black SUVs pulled up, 4 bodyguards stepped out, and lawyers followed. What they revealed froze the entire cafe in silence. Stay with this story until the very end, because sometimes the quietest kindness shakes the loudest power. And before we begin, like this video and subscribe to Ever Bell's Tales, where everyday humanity becomes unforgettable stories. The city woke up the same way every morning. Horns blaring, buses sighing, coffee machines hissing. But for Daniel Brooks, mornings were never routine. He was a single father of a 7-year-old boy named Lucas, and every day began as a careful balancing act between time, money, and exhaustion. Daniel worked as a delivery driver, leaving home before sunrise, Lucas still asleep with one arm flung over his pillow. Daniel always paused before leaving, brushing his son's hair back gently, whispering promises he hoped he could keep. At exactly 6:10 a.m., Daniel's bike rolled to a stop at the same crosswalk near Maple Avenue. And every morning, without fail, an old man waited there. His name was Mr. Harold Finch, or at least that's what he told Daniel the first day they met. Harold walked slowly, leaning heavily on a worn wooden cane, his coat always buttoned wrong, his hands trembling as traffic roared past. The light felt too fast for him. Drivers were impatient. Some honked, others shouted. The first time Daniel helped him, it was instinct. He had seen Harold hesitate, step back, nearly lose his balance. Daniel dismounted his bike, held up a hand to stop traffic, and offered his arm. "Take your time," he said. Harold looked up, startled, then smiled a tired, grateful smile. From that day on, it became their quiet ritual. Daniel would arrive, Harold would nod, and together they crossed. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. Harold liked to ask about Lucas. Daniel liked to listen to Harold's stories, about old bookstores, about jazz clubs that no longer existed, about a life that felt larger than the man standing beside him now. Harold never talked about family, never mentioned money. He always paid for his coffee in exact change at the small cafe on the corner, where Daniel sometimes joined him for 5 minutes before work. Daniel never thought much of it. Kindness wasn't something he calculated. He was just doing what he hoped someone would do for his son one day. But slowly, Daniel noticed things that didn't quite fit. Harold's shoes were old but polished. His coat was worn, but tailored. His words were thoughtful, educated, precise. Once, when Daniel mentioned struggling with medical bills, Harold listened closely and said, "Pride is expensive, son. Don't let it bankrupt you." Daniel didn't know why, but the words stayed with him. Weeks turned into months. Rain, snow, heat, it didn't matter. Daniel still stopped. Harold still waited, until one morning Harold didn't show. The crosswalk felt strangely empty. Daniel waited longer than usual, checking his watch. Finally, disappointed and worried, he rode on. The next day Harold was back, but weaker. His hand shook more. His breath came harder. "You all right?" Daniel asked. Harold nodded. "Time catches up," he said softly. "But kindness, that keeps you standing." Daniel didn't know it then, but those mornings, the unnoticed ones, were being watched. Not by neighbors, not by cameras, by something far more powerful. The cafe was unusually quiet that morning. Daniel sat across from Harold, stirring his coffee, checking the time anxiously. Lucas had a school presentation that day, and Daniel hated being late. Harold noticed. "Go," he said gently. "The boy comes first." Daniel smiled. "Always." He stood, helped Harold up, and walked him to the crosswalk one last time before work. That was the morning the black SUVs arrived. They pulled up without sirens, without noise, but their presence sucked the air out of the street. 4 men stepped out first, tall, broad, dressed in dark suits with the unmistakable posture of bodyguards. Pedestrians slowed. Cafe patrons stood. Daniel froze, one hand still on Harold's arm. Then 2 more men emerged, older, serious, carrying briefcases. Lawyers, no doubt about it. One of them approached Harold and spoke softly. "Mr. Finch, we've been looking for you." Daniel stepped back instinctively. "Is everything okay?" he asked, heart pounding. Harold looked at him, eyes calm, almost amused. "It seems," he said, "that I can't avoid my own shadow forever." The lawyer turned to Daniel. "Sir," he said, nodding respectfully, "my client would like you to join us inside." Inside the cafe, time felt suspended. Harold sat straighter than Daniel had ever seen him. The trembling eased. The bodyguard stood watch. One lawyer opened a folder. "Mr. Finch," he said, "is Harold Finch, founder and majority shareholder of Finch and Lowell Holdings." Daniel's breath caught. The name was familiar, one of the largest real estate and investment firms in the region. Billion-dollar familiar. Daniel shook his head. "That's not possible," he whispered. Harold smiled sadly. "It is," he said, "and it's been a long road avoiding it." Harold explained. After his wife died, after his son cut ties over money and control, Harold walked away from wealth, from power, from everything that felt hollow. He lived simply, quietly, watching how people treated him when he had nothing to offer. "Most didn't see me," he said. "You did." The lawyer slid another document forward. "Mr. Finch has updated his will," he said. Daniel's heart raced. "No," Daniel said quickly. "I don't want." Harold raised a hand. "This isn't charity," he said firmly. "This is trust." Harold had arranged a college fund for Lucas, full coverage. He had also created a foundation in Daniel's name, focused on single parents and elderly care. Daniel felt dizzy. "Well, me?" he asked. Harold leaned forward. "Because you gave me dignity when you thought I was nobody," he said. "And that tells me everything about the man raising that boy." The news spread, but not the way Daniel feared. Harold insisted on privacy. No interviews, no headlines, just action. Lucas's future was secure. Daniel reduced his hours. He was present for homework, for laughter, for life. Harold moved into assisted care, not luxury, just comfort. Daniel still visited him, still crossed streets with him, even when Harold no longer needed the cane. Habit, Harold joked. The foundation quietly helped hundreds, single parents, elderly neighbors, people society rushed past. Daniel never saw himself as special. "I just stopped my bike," he always said. On Harold's last morning, months later, Daniel was there. "You know," Harold said softly, "I had power once. But you gave me purpose again." Daniel squeezed his hand. "You reminded me kindness still matters," he replied. After Harold passed, Daniel and Lucas stood at the same crosswalk. Lucas held his father's hand. "Daddy," he asked, "are we going to help people forever?" Daniel smiled. "As long as we can," he said. "Because some legacies aren't built with money, but with stopping when others rush past." If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness never goes unnoticed, please like this video and subscribe to Ever Bell's Tales. Your support helps us share stories where small acts change lives, and quiet goodness leaves the loudest impact.